My dad had a trailer near Bayfield where he would go for the summers. It was right on a golf course. And I remember going to visit him one day, and go in the trailer, and I'm looking around at how he's decorated the place. And there was a picture that was on the wall. It was a picture of me. It was my grade 5 school photo. I don't have a copy of it, but you see the laser background, and you probably recognize that school photo background from the late 70s, through into the late 80s. Lasers in the background. And so I made a comment to my dad, something like, "Oh, we got a picture of me on the wall, but not my brother and sister." And he kind of shakes his head at me and realized after a few moments that he believes that the photo he has on the wall is his grade 5 school picture. And so we end up having this debate, this argument, where I'm basically telling him, "Dad, no offense, but when you were in grade 5, they didn't have color photographs for school photos, and they didn't have laser beams in the background." He did not concede the point, but it was another one of those pieces of evidence to support what I was telling you during the announcements, that my father and I are very much clones of one another. That you can look at pictures of various ages. If people happen to see my dad apart from me, they think, "All right, that must be related to Brad Morrison." We look a lot alike. And so that's been really one of the benefits for me, has been the beauty of learning from my father's life. And I think we can all appreciate this. I don't want it to come off as something like a criticism, but I think all of us as parents, we want our kids to learn from our mistakes. We know they'll make their own, but we want them to not do the things we wish we hadn't done. And that was one of the gifts of my father, who, this week would have celebrated his 48th anniversary of sobriety with AA. So many of you know Brad doesn't drink, and there's reasons behind that. Simply, I learned from my dad. It's like, okay, it was a poor choice for him. I'm just going to choose to do differently. So I've benefited from learning from this person with whom I have so much in common. And it's one of the things I'm grateful for. I'm sure I could come up with a list of things other things that I've learned from him, but I'm sure that you get the point. And if you think about it, what are some of those things you learned from your parents that they're quite happy that you learned the easy way because they had to learn it the hard way? I'm sure if you thought about it, you could come up with some of those. And for those, we're very grateful. And then you're reminded that you made your own stack of mistakes yourself, and you hope that your own kids don't make those same mistakes. But yes, there's something very comforting, in a time of grief and sadness, as we get ready for my father's funeral, in being reminded of, these are the gifts that my dad has given to me, that they're not objects, they're not things purchased, but they're life lessons, and they help to shape me. And for those, I'm grateful. One of the gifts that I want to highlight that my father gave to me came while we were driving one day. We were in Chatham, And I remember, if you know Chatham, you know that no matter which direction you go, you're going to be stuck at a train somewhere. It's one of the very helpful excuses in Chatham. Strathroy, you have a similar mistake. Sorry, I'm late, but I got stopped by a train. And I remember we were stopped at the train tracks, heading out towards 40 Highway. And we were talking. I might have been, who knows, maybe I was like in grade 5, like I was in the photo. But we were talking about school and friends, and I remember saying something to my dad which had him just say, abruptly, in a way that makes you remember it. And I'll sanitize it. For it, because I know you all have precious ears. He said, I don't care what other people think of me. You can read between the lines as to what he actually said. I don't care what other people think of me. And this was what he learned in his years since he stopped drinking, where when you stop drinking, people have some thoughts about you, and those thoughts sometimes turn into not wanting to socialize with you. And I learned in that moment that there's something great about being assured, being certain, and not allowing the whims of others, the need to be liked, to drive how it is that you live your life. For those of you who are older than me, you can ask someone my age afterwards just what in the world is on the screen, who Napoleon Dynamite is. He didn't care what he looks like and what people think of him. A great gift that I have. And I'm sure some of you have received that same life lesson from your loved ones also. If we look at the scripture passage today and just focus on one of the pieces of armor, you recall that there's this helmet, the helmet of salvation, the thing that goes over your head, the thing that protects not so much your brain, but protects your mind. And when I think about that story with my dad saying, I don't care what other people think about me, I imagine that he had this gift in his sobriety of a helmet that protected him from what other people thought of him. Looking at each of these gifts, they protect different parts of who we are so that we can serve God. The belt of truth, protecting your gut. Like, how many of you live by your instincts, by your gut? You've made many decisions based on your gut. How do we make sure that we protect those instincts from what the world may want us to do, but instead to serve God? This breastplate of righteousness, protecting our heart. This idea that we want our hearts protected from the world and what it wants of us, so that our hearts can feel God and serve God. The shoes of peace. The idea that we want our feet to be God's feet. Protect how we behave and where we go so we can serve God. The shield of faith, our will, how to preserve our will to serve God. Talked about the helmet of salvation. And the sword of the Spirit. What's in your hand and how do you make sure that it serves God? This letter to the Ephesians is saying to them, hey, we're going to use this wonderful analogy to the Roman centurion. We're going to look at their armor, and we're going to get a life lesson out of this. Protect those parts of your body in the spiritual battle that this world wages as a war against us, and make sure that you protect yourself so you can serve God. And this is the armor that God gives us to do that. So this is, I don't know, Sarah, if you recognize this picture. This is a So this is a picture that Sarah snapped. It was a long night, and I was holding my father's hand when he was in palliative care, 10th floor, University Hospital. Some of you probably have your own difficult memories of that space. And as you know, when after someone who's had a stroke and while they're dying and they're being medicated, slowly drifting off, but there's that moment where they kind of just start opening their eyes and they're looking. And so whenever my dad would open his eyes near the end, I get up and move around to the other side of the bed, and I just sort of put my face in front of his, so that, knowing that he's not necessarily focusing, whatever, but it was kind of comforting for me that he would see my face as sort of something comforting. And if you know me, you got a pretty good glimpse into the Morrison psychology, which comes from Dad, that you just can't help but finding something funny in even the most difficult moments. So while I'm standing there over my father's bed while he's dying and he's looking up at me, I thought in the moment, he probably thinks he's looking at a picture of himself when he was this age. And I took comfort in that, knowing that in his mind, at least, he's able to be reminded that he is a child, like his own child, and that even in that most difficult time, he has that protection in his mind, even if it's just looking at a familiar face and familiar eyes, and that he's inheriting what this scripture passage is about fundamentally. That we are guarded by God for this promise of salvation. A salvation not only in this life, where someone may be saved from their addiction to alcohol, so their life can be saved and transformed, and their children's lives can be saved, but also being saved for a next life in God's protection. Thanks for indulging me as I use this opportunity to honor my dad. And I hope that you'll take some comfort with your own memories, and that you'll find some peace as you reflect on any losses that you have. Let's close with song.